Meet Wei Lingling, 28 years old, logistics engineer, lives alone in a decent-sized apartment. Nothing special, nothing extra. Clean, functional, a little empty. She works, she eats, she sleeps, she reads Manhwa until her eyes give up on her. That is her life. Quiet, organized, lonely in the way that becomes so familiar you stop noticing it. She has no family, no parents, no siblings, no one who calls to check if she ate. She grew up in the system, moved through it, came out the other side intact, but hollowed out in a particular way that orphans know and rarely talk about. She is fine. She tells herself this regularly. She is fine. Then one Tuesday afternoon, while she is staring at a logistics spreadsheet that absolutely does not deserve her attention, she fell asleep. Just for a second. A dirt courtyard. Warm golden light. The smell of firewood and something sweet cooking. She was standing in an ancient courtyard under falling plum blossoms. Two children were running toward her. Mother, a little boy and a little girl, both around 5 years old. Behind them stood a tall man dressed in dark robes. His eyes were gentle. He looked at her as if she were his entire world. And then, gone. Back to the spreadsheet. She blinks, rubs her eyes, drinks her cold coffee. Weird, she thinks. I must be tired. She forgets about it by the next second. Weird dream. Nothing more. The second time happened 3 days later. This time, she wasn't watching. She was living it. She felt warm hands wrapping around hers. She smelled rice porridge and medicinal herbs. She heard the man's voice. Lingling, don't worry. Even if heaven falls, I'll hold it up for you. She woke up crying. That should have been enough to scare her, but it wasn't, because the third time happened the following week. She is exactly where she is happiest, horizontal on her couch, takeout within reach, phone in hand, deep into her favorite manhwa. The Transmigration one. The one with the space inventory and the ancient dynasty and the system that gives the heroine everything she needs and a husband who would move mountains for her. Lingling has read it 4 times. She is not ashamed. She is right at the part where the heroine first activates her system when the daydream hits. And this time it is not a flicker. It is not a glimpse. It is a flood. The courtyard. The children, 2 of them, small and fast, running toward her screaming mama, mama with their arms out. The smell of the house. The texture of rough linen under her fingers. And the man, the same man from every dream, who turns around this time, slowly, and looks at her. He has a calm face, steady eyes, and he smiles at her, quiet and certain, the way someone smiles at the person they chose and would choose again every single day. Lingling comes back to her couch gasping like she surfaced from deep water. She sits there, phone on the floor, takeout forgotten. Her Manhwa-trained brain is already working. She stands up slowly. She starts pacing. And then she does something that would be embarrassing if anyone could see her. She points at the air in front of her and begins reasoning out loud like a woman building a legal case. And Wei Lingling had a saying. The first time, blame ignorance. The second time, blame accident. But the third time, there's nobody to blame but yourself. She sat upright in bed at 3 in the morning. No way. Her eyes widened. No, 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 no. As an avid reader of transmigration novels and apocalypse manhwa, she knew exactly where this was going. She pointed at herself. Don't tell me. Silence, she swallowed. I have a system. Nothing happened. Wei Lingling laughed awkwardly. Okay, maybe I've finally lost my mind. Then, something warm touched her wrist. A tiny golden sun appeared on her skin. Not a tattoo. Not a light. A miniature sun with delicate rays slowly rotating around its center. Wei Lingling froze. A mechanical voice echoed inside her head. System activated. She screamed. And then, alone in her apartment at 11:30 on a Friday night, Wei Lingling whispers. I knew it. A pause. I knew it. 3 hours later, after screaming, crying, laughing, and checking whether she had developed schizophrenia, Wei Lingling finally accepted reality. She really had a system. Not only that, she possessed a massive storage space, infinite preservation, infinite storage. Time inside was frozen. And according to the system interface, she had exactly 1 year remaining. 1 year before she would return to one of her past lives. 1 year before disaster. 1 year to prepare. What follows is the most intensely focused period of her life. And she was already a very focused person. She researches everything. Tang Dynasty agriculture, ancient Chinese medicine, food preservation methods, crop cycles, fabric weaving, childbirth practices, common illnesses, and their herbal treatments. She approaches it with the systematic precision of a logistics engineer who has just been handed the most important project of her career, because somewhere in the back of her mind, in a place she doesn't examine too closely, she knows she is going back. She doesn't know how. She doesn't know when. But she knows, so she prepares. The little sun on her wrist glows warmly every time she sends something into the space. Food, seeds, medicine, modern medicine, the kind that would seem like pure sorcery in ancient China. Tools, fabric, needles and thread, books on agriculture and botany, a water filtration kit, vitamins. She adds and adds and adds, and the space receives everything without complaint, apparently limitless. She starts talking to the little sun like it is a person. She names it Xiaoyang, Little Sunday. Xiaoyang does not respond, but it always glows a little brighter when she adds something good. She is, for the first time in years, genuinely happy to wake up in the morning. She paused, then added, Children's toys checked. After all. In her dreams, the twins had smiled so brightly. Bao Bao, yeah, and that man. Chun Muyang, the husband who looked at her as though she were the only person in existence. Wei Lingling touched her chest. She had never had a family, never had anyone who chose her. But somehow, when she thought about returning to them, it didn't feel frightening. It felt like going home. She didn't know that 1 month later, when she finally opened her eyes in that ancient world, the first thing she would hear would be a man's desperate voice. Lingling, please wake up. I can't lose you too. And for the first time in her 28 years of life, someone would be crying because he was afraid to lose her. The first thing Wei Lingling felt was pain. Not unbearable pain, just exhaustion, as if she had spent days carrying a mountain on her back. Then came warmth. A hand, large, rough, trembling. Lingling. The voice was hoarse, male, terrified. Wei Lingling wanted to open her eyes, but her eyelids felt impossibly heavy. The air smelled different, with smoke, medicine, earth, not disinfectant, not city pollution, not her apartment. Her heart skipped. No way, no. No, no, no. The system had said 1 year, not 1 month, not 1 week, 1 year. Did she somehow die early? She forced her eyes open. The ceiling above her was wooden. Old wooden beams, sunlight filtered through paper windows. She turned her head slowly and froze. He was there, exactly as she remembered. No, not remembered, as she had dreamed. Chen Muyang. He looked younger than she had imagined from her dreams. Perhaps 29 or 30. His hair was tied back carelessly, and his clothes were plain and patched. His face was handsome in the quiet, unassuming way of someone who worked under the sun every day. But what struck her most were his eyes, red, as if he hadn't slept, as if he had been crying. When he saw her eyes focus, his entire body went rigid. Lingling. She stared, he stared, neither spoke. Then, suddenly, he grabbed her hand with both of his. You're awake. His voice broke. Thank heaven. Wei Lingling's chest tightened. No one had ever looked at her like that before. Not in her 28 years of modern life. Not once. As if her existence alone mattered. As if losing her would destroy his world. She opened her mouth. Muyang. The moment she spoke, tears fell from his eyes. Not dramatic tears. Not loud sobbing. Just silent tears. I thought. He swallowed hard. I thought I lost you. Something inside Wei Lingling cracked. She had prepared herself for transmigration. For ancient society. For poverty. For survival. She had not prepared herself for someone loving her this much. Before she knew what she was doing, she squeezed his hand. I'm okay. The words came naturally, as though she had said them to him countless times before. He lowered his head for a moment. Then he laughed weakly. You scared me. A small voice interrupted. Mother. Wei Lingling froze. Another voice. Mother. She slowly turned. Standing at the doorway were 2 tiny figures, a little boy, a little girl, 5 years old, the same children from her dreams, Bao Bao and Yaya. Their eyes were red from crying. The little girl clutched a worn cloth rabbit. The little boy tried to stand straight and brave, but his lips trembled. For one horrible second, Wei Lingling panicked. What was she supposed to do? She had never been a mother. She had never even babysat. What if they noticed? What if they realized she wasn't their mother? Then Yaya burst into tears. Mother. The little girl ran forward and crashed into the bed. Bao Bao followed immediately after. We thought you didn't want us anymore. We were good. We listened to father. We didn't fight. Their tiny hands clutched her clothes. And something happened. A flood of emotions. Memories. Not her memories. This body's memories. Holding them as babies. Teaching them to walk. Watching them sleep. Laughing with them. Loving them. So much love. It crashed into her like a wave. Wei Lingling began crying before she understood why. She wrapped her arms around both children. I'm here. The words came out broken. I'm here. Bao Bao cried harder. Ye buried her face against her chest. And beside the bed, Chun Muyang quietly turned his face away, giving his wife and children a moment. A family. A real family. The kind Wei Lingling had secretly dreamed about her entire life. After a long time, the children finally calmed down. That's when Wei Lingling noticed something strange. A familiar warmth on her wrist. Her breath caught. She carefully looked down, hidden beneath her sleeve. The tiny golden sun was still there. And before her eyes, a translucent blue panel appeared. Welcome back, host. Family status, safe. Storage space, active. Modern access gate, locked. Unlock requirement, reunite entire family. Wei Lingling blinked, family. Before she could ask anything, another memory surfaced, a painful one. Voices, harsh voices, accusations. Her husband's family. She eats more than a grown man. She only gave birth once. What use is a woman who cannot have more children? And then another memory. Chun Muyang standing in front of her. Angry, protective, terrifying. If my wife leaves, I leave. Silence. You choose. And he had chosen her. He had abandoned his family for her. For the woman whose body Wei Lingling now occupied. The realization hit her hard. This man, this family, they had already chosen her, long before she had ever arrived. And for the first time since waking up, Wei Lingling smiled. Perhaps, just perhaps, coming home wasn't such a bad thing after all. Wei Lingling spent the next hour doing something she had never imagined doing in her previous life. Pretending not to notice that she had transmigrated. Fortunately, or unfortunately, the body's memories kept surfacing in fragments. Not enough to know everything. Enough to survive. She learned that she had fainted while carrying water from the river. She learned that Chun Muyang had carried her home himself. She learned that the village doctor had said it was exhaustion and poor nutrition. That last part almost made her laugh. Poor nutrition. The original owner had apparently eaten enough for 2 grown men, which was exactly why her husband's family had hated her. The room grew quiet. Bao Bao and Yaya had fallen asleep against her sides, exhausted from crying. Chun Muyang sat on a small stool beside the bed, watching her, not in a suspicious way, not in an overbearing way, just watching. As if he wanted to make sure she wouldn't disappear again. Wei Lingling suddenly felt nervous. She had never been alone with a husband before, especially not a husband who looked at her like she was the moon and stars. You should rest, he said softly. She nodded. You too. He smiled, a small smile, the kind reserved for precious things. I'll rest after you're asleep. Wei Lingling nearly suffered emotional damage. Who says things like that? In the 21st century, the closest thing she'd had to romance was reading comment sections under Manhwa chapters. She looked away. And that's when she noticed the room. It was poor, not miserably poor, but poor enough. A wooden bed, a table, 2 stools, a cabinet. No decorations, no luxury, no shelves full of food, no hidden wealth, just a simple home. Yet somehow, it felt warmer than her apartment had ever been. A memory surfaced. This house had been built by Chun Muyang, with his own hands, after leaving his family, for her, because she had once cried and said she didn't want to live with people who hated her. Wei Lingling's heart hurt. This man really had abandoned everything for his wife. She looked at him again. He was fixing the blanket around Yaya, carefully, gently, as if afraid of waking her. How was this legal? How had she never found a man like this in the 21st century? Then again, maybe there was a reason. Maybe all her luck had been saved for this moment. The thought made her smile. Chun Muyang noticed. You smiled. She froze. I did. He nodded. You haven't smiled in days. His voice grew quieter. I was worried. The guilt nearly killed her. Not because she had done anything wrong, but because she wasn't the woman he thought she was. Yet, at the same time, the memories, the feelings, the love, they felt real. The original owner had loved this man, and these children, so much. And somehow, Wei Lingling already did too. Not romantic love. Not yet. But something warm. Something precious. She opened her mouth. Muong. He immediately looked up. Yes. A dangerous question escaped before she could stop it. Why did you choose me? Silence. He stared at her, as if she had asked why the sky was blue. What? Your family. She swallowed. They wanted you to leave me. He looked confused. Yes, you could have stayed. No. The answer came so quickly she almost missed it. She blinked. You didn't even think about it. His confusion deepened. Why would I? Wei Lingling suddenly felt like she had walked into a trap. Because she hesitated. I couldn't have more children. He frowned. So, she stared. So, you already gave me Bao Bao and Yaya. He looked genuinely puzzled. I only wanted a family. He glanced toward the sleeping twins. I have one. Wei Lingling's brain stopped functioning. But I eat a lot. He nodded. You do. Duh. Then he added seriously. So I work harder. Wei Lingling nearly cried. No. Actually, she did cry. Just a little. Because nobody had ever said something like that to her before. He immediately panicked. Did I say something wrong? No. Then why are you crying? I don't know. That wasn't entirely true. She knew exactly why. Because in 28 years of life, no one had ever chosen her without conditions. No one had ever looked at her and said, you are enough. But this man had. Not because she was beautiful. Not because she was useful. Not because she could give him more children. Simply because she was his wife. Chen Muyang carefully reached out and held her hand. Wei Lingling. She looked up. If one day the whole world tells me to abandon you. His voice remained calm. I'll abandon the whole world. The room became silent. The system suddenly appeared. Warning. Warning. Host's husband affection level exceeds system prediction. Calculating. Error. Affection level. Impossible. Wei Lingling stared. Then she laughed. Actually laughed. For the first time since arriving here. Maybe, just maybe, she had transmigrated into the world's most dangerous existence. Not an emperor. Not a cultivator. Not a chosen heroine. But a man whose entire universe revolved around his wife. Wei Lingling did not sleep. Not because the bed was uncomfortable. Not because she was afraid. No. She didn't sleep because she had just discovered two very important facts. First, she had a husband who would apparently fight heaven itself if it inconvenienced her. Second, she still had her system. Naturally, sleep became impossible. The room was quiet. Bao Bao and Yia were sprawled across the bed like tiny starfish, one clutching her sleeve and the other hugging her waist. Chun Muyang slept on the outer edge of the bed, facing them. Even asleep, one arm was stretched protectively toward his family. Wei Lingling stared at the ceiling. Then she whispered in her mind. System. A familiar panel appeared. Host. Wei Lingling. Current timeline. Great Liang Dynasty. Identity. Chun family daughter-in-law. Family members. 3. Storage space. Active. Modern gate. Locked. Duration of modern gate access. 1 hour. Unlock condition. Family recognition complete. Family recognition? Wei Lingling frowned. Hadn't they already recognized her? Before she could ask, another panel popped up. Notice. Would host like to review pre-transmigration assets? Yes/no. Her eyes widened. Pre-transmigration assets. She selected yes. The world disappeared. She found herself standing in an endless white space. No, not endless, just impossibly large. As far as she could see were mountains of supplies. Actual mountains. Rice, flour, salt, sugar, cooking oil, medicines, clothes, blankets, seeds, tools, solar panels, generators, water purifiers, books, furniture, kitchen equipment, agricultural equipment, camping gear, building materials, children's toys, baby clothes, school supplies, toothbrushes, soap, shampoo, even plush toys. Wei Lingling stared, then stared some more, then sat down. Oh, that was all she could say. Because she remembered every second of that year. The panic, the excitement, the certainty that something big was coming. The countless overtime shifts, selling her apartment, selling her car, using every loan she could legally obtain. Buy, buy, buy. At first, she had thought she was crazy. Then she had seen the space expand. Then she had seen the timer counting down. After that, she had fully embraced insanity. Apparently, she had been very good at it. She wandered through the mountains of supplies, There was enough rice to feed a small kingdom, enough medicine to run a hospital, enough books to build a library, and then she saw it. The thing that made her stop breathing. A section labeled, Da for Muyang. Inside were dozens of things. Warm clothing, medicine, tools, books, boots, blankets, a handmade notebook. Her notebook. Wei Lingling picked it up. Her own handwriting stared back at her. If he really exists, he works too hard. Buy more shoes. Buy more winter clothes. Remember medicine. Men never admit when they're sick. She swallowed. There was another page. For Bao Bao. Wooden toys, books, sweets. For Yia. Dolls, ribbons, stuffed animals. If they really exist, I hope they're happy. Another page. Smaller handwriting. More hesitant. If I really have a family waiting for me somewhere, then maybe this life wasn't so lonely after all. Wei Lingling closed the notebook. Her vision blurred. In her previous life, she had told herself she was stockpiling for survival, for danger, for the future. But somewhere along the way, she had started stockpiling for them. For a husband she had never met. For children who had only existed in dreams. And now they were real. A sudden notification interrupted her thoughts. Condition met. Family recognition. Complete. Modern gate. Unlocked. A loud rumbling sound echoed through the space. Wei Lingling slowly turned. In the distance, where there had once been only white emptiness, a door appeared. A modern door. White. Simple. The kind you might find in an apartment building. Her heart pounded. No way. She walked toward it, faster, then faster, until she stood before it. The handle was warm. The system appeared again. Modern gate. Travel duration. 1 hour. Maximum travelers. Immediate family. Cooldown. 30 days. Warning. Host must return before time limit expires. Wei Lingling's hands trembled. The 21st century still existed. She could go back. Not permanently. But she could visit. And more importantly, her family could too. She suddenly pictured Bao Bao and Yeye seeing electricity, cars, televisions, ice cream. She pictured Chun Muyang entering a supermarket, looking at shelves stacked from floor to ceiling. He would probably think he'd entered heaven. Wei Lingling burst out laughing. Then she stopped, because she realized something else, something much more important. She had spent an entire year preparing. She had enough supplies to survive wars, famines, droughts, and disasters. And yet, she had absolutely no idea why she had been sent back. The smile slowly disappeared from her face. The system panel flickered. And for the first time since arriving, a new message appeared. Main quest. Protect the Chen family. Survive the coming calamity. Time remaining. 0.2 years, 11 months, 16 days. Wei Lingling stared, then looked toward the sleeping forms of her husband and children, visible through the system's viewing panel. Her husband, who would abandon the world for her. Her children, who had cried because they thought they lost their mother. The first days are a careful dance of wonder and adjustment. Her past life memories return gradually, not all at once, but in soft waves, like a tide coming in. She remembers the original Lingling piece by piece. A gentle woman, hardworking, deeply in love with her husband, and utterly devoted to her children. Shy with strangers, honest with the people she trusted. She remembers her voice, her habits, the particular way she tucked Yeye's collar up against the cold. The new Lingling does not feel like she replaced her. She feels like she completed her, like the missing half finally arrived. She settles in. She learns the rhythms of the house. When Muyang leaves for the fields, when the twins need feeding, when the neighbors are likely to pass by the gate. She is careful. She is always careful. A logistics engineer does not make moves without first understanding the system she is operating inside. And all the while, Xiaoyang sits warm and steady on her wrist, and the space waits. She begins slowly. The first thing she takes from the space is medicine, a fever reducer, carefully ground down and mixed into Yi's evening porridge when the little girl comes home with flushed cheeks and glassy eyes. By morning, Yeye is terrorizing her brother again as if nothing happened. Muyang looks at his daughter, then at the empty bowl, then at Lingling. He doesn't ask. She doesn't explain. Not yet. Next, she introduces better food. Nothing so dramatic that it draws attention. Just richer broths, more varied vegetables, grains that last longer and go further. The family eats better. The twins have more energy. Muyang comes home to meals that make him pause in the doorway just to breathe in the smell before he takes his shoes off. He notices everything. She can see him noticing. But he waits. After 2 weeks, she tests the space itself, its boundaries, its rules. She steps inside when the house is quiet and the twins are napping. The space is vast and still and organized exactly as she left it. Every shelf in order, Xiaoyang glowing softly at the center of it like a small personal sun. She spends an hour inside reorganizing and taking stock. Time moves differently in there, slower, gentler. Then she sees the door. She knew it was there. The system told her, but seeing it is different. It stands against the far wall of the space, simple and wooden, entirely unremarkable except for the thin line of modern light leaking underneath it. Electric light. The unmistakable cool blue-white of the 21st century. She stands in front of it for a long time with her hand on the handle. Then she opens it. The noise hits her first. Traffic, distant music, the ambient hum of a city that never fully sleeps. Then the light. Then the smell of concrete and rain and someone's food delivery going past on a scooter. She is looking at a narrow alley in a modern city. Her city, not her apartment. Somewhere neutral, anonymous, between a convenience store and a pharmacy. The little sun pulses on her wrist. Portal open. Timer, 60 minutes. 50-minute alert will sound. Lingling steps through alone this time. Just to test it. Just to know for certain. She buys 3 things: vitamins, a packet of good tea, and a small hand mirror she has been missing, and steps back through the door before 20 minutes are up. Back in the space. Back in the quiet. The door closes behind her. She stands there with her 3 items in her arms and a feeling in her chest that is very close to joy. The space works. The door works. She can go back and forth. Now she needs to know one more thing. She waits until a quiet afternoon when Muyang is in the fields and the twins are playing in the courtyard. She goes to the entrance of the space, that invisible threshold only she can feel, and she thinks very deliberately about Bao Bao. She reaches her hand out through the threshold. Come here, she calls softly. Come to Mama. Bao Bao looks up from his game. He walks over to her with his usual serious expression, reaching up to take her hand. And she pulls him gently across the threshold, and he comes through. He stands inside the space, blinking at the shelves and the light, and says with complete 5-year-old calm, "It's big in here." Lingling exhales. It works. Other people can enter. Her family can come in. She brings Bao Bao back out after a moment, smoothing his hair. He immediately runs back to his game and does not mention it again, because he is 5 and the interior of a magic space is not even in the top 5 most interesting things that happened to him this week. Lingling watches him go. Then she looks at Xiaoyang on her wrist. She has everything she needs to know. That evening, after the twins are asleep, she tells Muyang she needs to talk to him. The oil lamp flickered softly. Its light didn't reach the corners of the room, leaving the wooden walls half swallowed in shadow, as if the house itself was holding its breath. Wei Lingling sat with her hands folded tightly in her lap. For once, she wasn't thinking about stockpiles or systems or survival probabilities. She was thinking about how to explain the impossible without sounding insane. Across from her, Chen Muyang waited. He didn't interrupt. He didn't push. He simply existed in the silence the way only people who trust completely can. That alone made her throat tighten. She exhaled. I'm not from this world. No reaction, not shock, not disbelief, just attention. So she continued. I come from another time. A future. His eyes narrowed slightly, not in doubt, but in concentration. Lingling chose her words carefully, like she always did when breaking down complex ideas. In my world, there are no horse carriages in cities. We use machines that move without animals. Light comes from glass bulbs, not fire. People speak across long distances instantly, through invisible signals. She paused. Muyang's gaze didn't move. He was absorbing it, not rejecting, processing. That alone made her voice steadier. I lived alone there. For 28 years. No parents. No family. No one. A small silence followed that. Not heavy. Just present. Then she added, quieter. Until I started seeing this world. His expression changed slightly. That was the first crack in his calm. Lingling lifted her wrist. The tiny golden sun appeared. Soft. Pulsing. Alive. Muyang's eyes locked onto it. He didn't move closer. Didn't retreat. Just stared. This appeared after the 3rd dream, she said. It told me I had something called a system. She hesitated, then forced herself to continue. It gave me storage. Resources. A space that holds everything I prepared for a disaster I didn't even understand at the time. Her voice lowered, and it brought me back here. That finally made his gaze sharpen. You were brought back? He repeated. Yes. A pause. Not by choice of place, she added. But I think maybe by choice of fate. That word hung in the air longer than the others. Fate. Muyang didn't reject it. He never did. Instead, he said softly, show me. So she did. The transition was instant. One step, and the world changed. They stood inside the storage space. Endless shelves stretched into the distance like a quiet horizon of survival itself. Food, medicine, tools, warm clothing, everything organized with almost obsessive precision. Muyang didn't speak. He simply turned slowly. His eyes moved from shelf to shelf, absorbing everything without touching. Lingling watched him carefully, waiting for confusion, fear, doubt, anything human and predictable. Instead, she saw a calculation. Understanding forming piece by piece, he walked forward, picked up a metal container, turned it in his hands. This is preserved food. Yes. He placed it back carefully, then moved to another shelf. Medicine, cloth, seeds. He stopped at nothing too long, until finally, this is not survival for one person, he said. Lingling nodded. No, his gaze shifted slightly. For a family. Her breath caught. He had understood that immediately, not just the scale, but the intention behind it. She swallowed. Yes. He didn't ask why, didn't question how. Instead, he simply accepted it as truth and moved on, as if the impossible had already been filed away in his mind. Show me the door, he said, so she led him. The modern gate stood there like something that didn't belong in either world. Simple, white, wrong. Muyang stared at it for a long time. Beyond it, faintly, was noise, light, movement. A world that didn't breathe like theirs. He didn't step through. Not immediately. He turned to her first. You live there, he said. Yes. You were alone. Yes. Another silence. Then, quieter. And you came back. Lingling nodded. I didn't choose the moment, she said honestly. But I would choose it again, even knowing everything. She met his eyes fully. I would still come back to you. To Bao Bao. To Yaya. Something in his expression shifted then, not doubt, not suspicion. Something heavier, relief. He stepped closer, slowly, and lifted both hands to her face. He didn't hold her like she was fragile. He held her like she was real. Like she might disappear if he didn't anchor her to the world. Then we don't argue with gods, he said quietly. We don't fight fate alone. His thumbs brushed lightly against her cheeks. We do it together. Lingling's breath broke slightly. You believe me? She asked. He didn't even hesitate. Yes. One word. Final. Certain. As if disbelief had never been an option. Then he added, softer. And I believe you were meant to come back. Her eyes stung. She hated that. She had survived stockpiling, apocalypse planning, system warnings. But this simple acceptance, was what broke her. Muyang pulled her forward, not suddenly, not forcefully, just enough, and she leaned into him without thinking. His arms wrapped around her completely. No hesitation. No conditions, just certainty. For the first time since she woke up in this world, Wei Lingling stopped preparing for loss and simply stayed. The night deepened around them. Back in the wooden house, the oil lamp had burned lower, its flame now small and steady, like it was conserving itself for something important. Wei Lingling still sat in Chun Muyang's arms, but now it felt different. Not like protection, not like comfort, like agreement. A shared understanding that something beyond their control had already started moving. Muyang was the first to pull back slightly, not far, just enough to look at her properly. Tell me everything, he said again. But this time, it wasn't a request for explanation. It was a decision. Lingling nodded, so she did. Not everything at once, but enough. She told him about the system rules, about the storage, about the modern world that still existed behind the gate, about time limits and cooldowns, and the strange warning about a coming calamity. He listened without interruption. Only once did his eyes shift slightly, when she mentioned the timeline. 2 years, he repeated. Yes. A pause. Less now, she admitted. Because I've already been here for a while. Muyang didn't panic. He didn't even frown. He simply asked, what kind of calamity? Lingling hesitated. I don't know yet. That was the first time his expression tightened. Not fear. Focus. Then we prepare for everything. he said immediately. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't emotional. It was practical. Like he had just decided to reinforce a roof before rain. Lingling blinked. You're not surprised? He looked at her like the question itself was strange. You were sitting in front of me after dying and returning from another world with food that doesn't rot and a door that opens into nowhere, he said calmly. Surprise already ended somewhere around the part where you showed me the sun on your wrist. That made her laugh despite herself. A small, broken sound. He softened slightly at that. Then he added, quieter, I just needed to understand what we are dealing with. We. Not you. Not me. We. That word landed heavier than anything else. Later, Bao Bao and Yaya slept through everything, unaware that their world had quietly expanded beyond anything they could understand. Chun Muyang sat with Lingling again, this time at the table. The lamp between them cast long shadows. So, he said, we have a space, a gate, and time we don't fully understand. Yes, and supplies that could feed the village. Lingling nodded again, more than the village. He hummed softly, thinking, then, we don't show everything. She looked up, he met her gaze. Not yet, he said. People don't accept miracles kindly. They fear them, or take them. Lingling understood immediately. He wasn't afraid of the system. He was afraid of people. More precisely, what people would do when they saw it. You want to keep it secret, she said. For now, he confirmed. Then he added, but we don't hide it from everyone. Her brows lifted slightly. He continued, my brother already thinks I abandoned the family because of pride. My parents will never accept you no matter what we show them. His tone stayed calm, but there was something cold under it. We choose carefully who deserves trust. Lingling studied him. This man, he wasn't just gentle. He wasn't just devoted. He was intelligent in a way she hadn't fully noticed before. Protective, yes, but also strategic. She leaned back slightly. So what do we do first? Muyang didn't hesitate. We stabilize our home. Then, we strengthen our position in the village. And after that, he looked at her for a moment, then said simply, we make sure nothing can take you from me again. The way he said it wasn't possessive. It wasn't controlling. It was final, like a vow made to reality itself. Lingling felt something tighten in her chest. Not fear. Something warmer. She nodded slowly. Then I'll stockpile smarter, she said. A faint smile appeared on his lips. I'll work harder. She shook her head immediately. That's not sustainable. He tilted his head. Explain. And just like that, they began planning. Together, not as husband and wife in a simple sense, but as two people building something against a future neither of them could yet see. Outside, the night stayed quiet. Inside, for the first time, Wei Lingling didn't feel like she was preparing to survive alone. She felt like she was building a world that would survive with her in it. The days that followed didn't announce themselves. No revelation, no dramatic realization that their lives had changed. They simply came, one after another. Quiet and ordinary on the surface, extraordinary underneath. And somehow, without either of them noticing exactly when, survival became living. From the outside, nothing about the Chun household appeared remarkable. A husband, a wife, two 5-year-olds with strong opinions and absolutely no respect for the laws of logic. A small house, a small field, a small life. From the inside, it was something else entirely. They fell into rhythm the way people do when they stop performing for each other and simply begin. Muyang left before dawn. Always, Lingling learned that he woke before the birds. She learned that he would spend an entire minute watching the children sleep before leaving. She learned that he checked the door latch twice every night. And she learned that every morning, before stepping outside, he looked back at her. Not because he expected her to disappear, because for a long time, he had been afraid she would. The first time she noticed it, she pretended not to. The second time, she almost cried. The third time, she sat up in bed and said, I'm not going anywhere. He froze, just for a moment. Then he nodded. I know. He still looked back the next morning. He moved through the fields the same way he moved through everything. Steadily, without waste. Lingling built routines. Not because she liked routines, because routines kept people alive. She learned when the village women fetched water, which market stalls cheated, which merchants lied, which neighbors were kind, which neighbors were curious, and which neighbors were dangerous. She tracked everything. Quietly. The way she had once tracked supply chains and shipping routes. No one noticed. That was the point. She mapped it all in her mind the way she mapped logistics. Quietly. Completely. Without anyone noticing she was doing it. The space became part of their daily life the way good tools become part of daily life. Naturally. Without ceremony. Without announcement, she brought things out carefully. Introduced them gradually. Never more than what could be explained by a good harvest or a generous trade. Better oil for the lamp. Stronger thread for mending. Medicine that worked slightly too well. Though she was careful with that one. She ground things down. Mixed them into food. Never enough to be suspicious. Always enough to matter. Let results speak without explanation. Muyang watched everything she did. Not with suspicion. With attention. The kind of attention that is its own form of respect. There was an evening. About 3 weeks after the planning night. When she came in from the courtyard to find him sitting with the twins at the table. Bao Bao had a brush in his hand. Muyang was guiding it. Not impatiently. Not with corrections every second. Just present. His large hand over the small one. Patient in the particular way he was patient with everything. Yia was supposed to be practicing too. She was instead drawing what appeared to be a chicken with extremely aggressive eyebrows. She held up the paper. It depicted a chicken. A furious chicken. A chicken that looked personally offended by the existence of the world. Mama, Yia announced proudly. It's you. Silence. Lingling looked at the chicken, then at Yia, then at Muyang. The corner of his mouth twitched. Just once. He was trying not to smile. He was failing. Lingling sat down. Very seriously, she sat down at the table, picked up a brush. Show me how you made the eyebrows, she said seriously. Yaya gasped. You like them? I think they're very powerful. Yaya beamed. And Muyang finally laughed. Not loudly, not for long, but enough. Enough that Lingling forgot to breathe for a second, because she realized something. She had dreamed about his face. She had dreamed about his voice. She had never dreamed about his laugh. And somehow, that made it feel more precious than everything else. She used the door for the first time with him 2 weeks after that. Not the whole family yet, just the two of them. An hour in the early afternoon, while a neighbor's daughter watched the twins. Lingling had tried to explain cars, electricity, modern medicine, the internet. After 20 minutes, Muyang had looked at her and said, I think I should see it. She had agreed. Now, standing in front of the door, she suddenly wished she had prepared him better. But there was no preparing someone for another world. There was only opening the door. So she did. The city exploded around them. Not very much, but enough. He stepped through behind her and stopped. Just stopped. The alley, the light, the noise, the smell of a world that had forgotten what wood smoke was. 1,000 lives colliding at once. He stopped. Not because he was afraid, because he was looking, really looking. A car passed. His eyes followed it. A motorcycle accelerated. His expression didn't change. A bus thundered by. He blinked. Once. It moves without horses, he said. Yes. How? We have 58 minutes. He considered this. Then explained later. And that was that. He stepped forward, as though crossing worlds was simply another task that needed doing. Lingling stared at his back, then laughed. Because of course he would react like that. Of course, he was Chun Muyang. The man who had abandoned his family without regret. The man who had accepted another universe in under 10 minutes. The man who, she increasingly suspected, would adapt to the apocalypse itself by asking practical questions. She followed him. And for the first time since arriving in this world, she realized something strange. She wasn't showing him her world. She was bringing him home. He accepted that immediately, filed it away, moved forward. She took him to the pharmacy first. He walked through it the way he walked through the space, absorbing without touching, reading the shapes of things even when he couldn't read the labels. He stopped in front of the pain medicine. This, Lingling said, picking it up. For headaches, fever, injury. He looked at it for a moment. How many people could this help? She looked at the bottle. In the village? Yes. She thought about it. Many. He nodded once. Put it in the basket without another word. That was Muyang. He didn't ask questions that had no useful answer. He didn't marvel at things longer than necessary. He simply identified what was useful and moved toward it. Yet every now and then, when he thought she wasn't looking, she caught him watching the world itself, not with fear, not with wonder, with assessment. As though he were trying to understand how a place like this had ever allowed her to be lonely. They spent the hour efficiently. Medicine, seeds for crops the village didn't know yet. 2 good knives, fabric that would last, and, after a long debate with a bewildered shopkeeper, for boxes of ice cream bars. For the children, Myung had said. Lingling hadn't pointed out that they would melt long before reaching ancient China. The space solved that problem, as it solved so many others. They should know what their mother came from. A pause. They should know all of you. Her throat tightened, because no one had ever asked to know all of her before. She nodded. Okay. The village noticed things gradually, the way villages always notice, sideways, through comparison, through the particular attention people pay to households that seem to be doing quietly better than makes sense. The Chun household, the small one, Myung's household, not the main family, was eating well. The children looked healthy, too healthy. The wife, who had always been quiet and a little too thin, had color in her face now. There was something different about the way she moved through the market too. Not arrogance, certainty. The kind that doesn't announce itself because it doesn't need to. People talked. They always did. Something is different about that household. Something has changed. They weren't wrong. The in-laws noticed first. Of course they did. Madame Chun had always watched her youngest son's household with the particular vigilance of a woman who believed everything beneath her gaze belonged, in some small way, to her. She had raised obedient sons, respectful sons, sons who understood hierarchy. And then there was Chun Muyang. He had always been respectful, always dutiful, always willing to help. But there had always been something underneath. Something she had never managed to uproot. Not rebellion. Not stubbornness. Certainty. The certainty of a man who had already decided what mattered. And she had never been what mattered most. She had known that. She had simply never wanted to admit it. So she visited. On a Tuesday. Without warning. She never warned. The gate stood open.